Hi. This is another session, and today we're going to talk about our trip home. And when we left in, I think it was May of 1977, we'd been married maybe 8 months,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
we took a 7-week trip home. We started planning for it in December.
Yeah. In our little brown Pinto.
Yes, yes.
It was packed to the max with stuff.
And we started planning for it in December and saving up because we knew we wanted to take a long trip. We figured we will never have this opportunity again.
It was so true. Yeah.
And it was a smart thing we did. We went through a total of 28 states in 7 weeks. And but before we left, we had a going away party at our apartment for our California friends and for our work friends. And we had a big banner that said Michigan or bust, and I think we still have it around here somewhere. And everybody signed it. And then the night before we left, we went over to a friend of ours, Sochil Solis. We spent the night there, and we were going to leave the next day early in the morning,
Yeah.
and we didn't leave till
Until
it was dark.
yeah, it was like early evening, but
Yeah.
yeah.
And when we left, I just had this incredible feeling of protection, but yet it was really kind of a heavy weight on me for Patty because I knew what I was going home to, but she was leaving everything she had for me. And so that was just kind of a heavy burden. I mean, it was a good burden. I liked it, but it really hit me that she's putting everything under my protection. And we left and we went up to Solvang, which was about, 2 hours away maybe?
Yeah. If no more than that.
Yeah. And we stayed up there overnight, and that's a little Dutch-themed town.
That's terrible. I should remember the nationality.
I think it's
Solvang.
Dutch.
Yeah.
Yeah, everything is
it's
Dutch
terrible.
in there, and it was really awesome.
Should know that.
And we have some pictures from there. And then the next day we went up to Pacifica to see Patty's aunt and uncle.
Yeah. Well, and Patty / Mana / mom /
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because we realize a lot of different ones of you that we love are watching this. So, yeah.
And these are cousins Patty had seen numerous times.
Oh yeah, yeah. We got together often when I was growing up because we were close, geographically. I mean, being in LA and them being just south of San Francisco, it was just days drive either way, and we did that every summer. We somehow got together, and yeah, it was
And when we
fun.
were, and Pacifica's right
Yeah.
on the ocean, and
Yeah, it's beautiful.
their
actually.
their
It's like a
home,
little cove,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty.
and their home was on a hill overlooking
Yeah.
that cove. I mean, it was
Yeah.
just gorgeous.
Yeah.
And Patty just happened to ask her aunt about her dad.
Yeah, I said, well, Aunt Blanca, I mean, we haven't heard from my dad in a long time, but I just was wondering, do you and Uncle Jack was Dad's brother, do you guys have any contact with them? And I don't remember if she said anything conclusive to me because she wanted to get in touch with my dad, but he was stationed at that time, he was stationed in Hawaii. And she contacted him, and he came the next day on a plane and arranged. I knew at that point somewhere in there I knew that he was coming, and we met, just him and I, and Grandpa Bill, as you guys know him, we met and had breakfast together, and it was, I'm trying to remember, he flew in, and I just remember meeting him. I don't remember all the logistics of how that worked, but it was just him and I. And we talked for several hours and really reconnected and caught up on our lives, and it was a good exchange.
And then she
Yeah.
brought him back
Yeah.
to Jack and Blanca's where I could
Right.
meet him,
Right.
and I just really liked him right away.
Mm-hmm.
Blanca had been waiting
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
one of the kids to ask about Bill,
Yeah.
and she wouldn't do it. She wouldn't say anything until they asked, because she kind of had to walk a fine line with your
True.
mom and your stepdad. So
True.
then we went to, so we spent a few days with them and had a ball. And by the way, Patty journaled our whole trip. And
Yeah, I just kept notes, and then when we finally got back to Michigan, one of Dave's cousins took it and typed it. I mean, not computer, typed it on a typewriter for me. Just took all my notes and typed them, which was really sweet of her to do.
yeah, that was
So
Bev.
that's what we Bev. So that's what we have now for you guys. I think Dad's going to somehow digitally
Yeah.
make PDFs or
Mhm.
something of those pages, so you guys have it that way too.
Yeah,
But yeah, lots of fun stories in there about
yeah.
our trip. Yeah.
And then we went to Sacramento because Patty had to get her birth certificate. We figured that would be a
Yeah.
good thing to have.
Yeah, and I'm really glad we did that. I mean, and we were right there in Sacramento at the Capitol. It was really cool, actually. I'd never seen that. And there's a big, beautiful, expanse of lawn and gardens and stuff. In front of the Capitol, and it was just felt very official to go in and request my birth certificate. And,
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
We couldn't get it from her mom because we had stopped seeing them and they
Yeah.
never
Yeah.
contacted us. So,
Yeah.
but then we went to, right near there, we went to see some friends of ours who were in our group in California and had just moved north, and that was Chris Tittle and Fred Moore.
Yeah.
And we stayed with them for a night or two
Mm-hmm.
and just had a good time. And then we saw what we thought was the home where Patty was born.
Yeah.
And it was this great big home, and we took
Yeah.
several photographs of it and
absolutely
combined it together. and-
Beautiful home. It turns out, after having more conversations, with my dad, that what they had done was rented a small little one-bedroom shack
Yeah.
that was on this property that the big home was on, and that's where they were living when I was born. And yeah.
So it wasn't the home that we thought.
Right.
But
we didn't know.
We
I
didn't
thought,
know.
well, but,
We didn't know. And then we continued on, and we went to Crater Lake, Oregon, and
yeah.
Crater
That was
Lake is a
beautiful.
big lake on top of this mountain, and we couldn't quite see the lake because there was a snowstorm up there, and it was a
True.
pretty bad snowstorm.
True. And Crater Lake was where we had gone. No, I'm thinking something different. On our,
Yeah, no, and that was Lake
Okay,
Tahoe.
Lake Tahoe.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
My age is showing.
yeah. But and then we went down into the valley, and it was
Yeah.
about a 2-hour drive from the top of the mountain into the valley,
Yeah.
and it was 80 degrees in the valley.
That I mean, that was a long time ago, and I remember that like it was amazing to have such a difference just because of having been up in the mountains, to have all that snow and the cold and everything, and then to travel back down again and be in
80-degree
80
weather,
degree
sunshine, no rain or anything.
Incredible.
Yeah,
Incredible.
yeah.
That was cool.
And then we went up to Seattle to see kind of a shirt-tail relative of yours,
Yeah,
Pilar Gibbons,
Right, right.
and her husband.
Yes,
And
yeah.
they lived on Puget Sound, and man, is that gorgeous!
Beautiful. They had a
Oh,
beautiful home. It was right. They had a huge backyard, and it was, butted up to the water. I mean, you could see the
Yeah.
water.
it was a
gorgeous.
24-room home.
Yeah, yeah,
So, and we stayed with them a few days.
Yeah.
Then we went on up to, well, from there we started going across the United States, and we went through Wyoming and Montana. And
Yes.
little did I know, we didn't know it at the time, but we should have gone through Bozeman, Montana, but
we didn't.
we didn't know it at the time.
But when we were in Montana, we got to see all kinds of cute cows. Okay, we'd stop by the side of the road, and just to see them, because I had not really seen cows in a pasture before. Okay, it was just so cool, and so I named one of them Ferdinand. Yeah, Ferdinand the cow, and so we have a picture. Of
We have
Ferdinand.
some
and we have some
video,
video. I
and,
think of
you
me
know,
talking about Ferdinand. The
Yeah,
cow.
you got out and you were
so-
talking to Ferdinand, and Ferdinand is
Yeah.
just, his legs are crossed, and he's
He's
just
so
looking at
cute.
us like we're weird.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, it was neat.
And then we went on, and
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to reach, was it Des Moines? No, it was in the Black Hills, but we had to
Yeah.
go through the Black Hills, but we didn't time it quite right, and we
Right.
went through the Black Hills at like 10 or 11 at night.
It was crazy. It was dark, and some of it, because you're driving through mountains, there's mountains above you, there's mountains below you, and there's the road you're on.
Yeah.
Okay, and so
A two-lane road.
Right, and you're going around all these curves. I was just grateful because of how we were going, that we were on the inside
Yes.
of the road. Okay, I could not imagine having been driving that going west and going on the outside of the road. I mean,
Yeah,
the
and these
other
were,
lane.
there were no
Oh.
barriers.
No,
you know,
no,
none.
no,
I
nothing.
mean-
just a little bit of a shoulder,
Yeah.
and then boom, a drop off because it was a mountain.
Yeah.
So it was pretty amazing, and we took our time, and we didn't worry about how fast we were going. And I don't remember if people passed us or anything. But
I don't think so.
I
don't think.
remember it was just, we took our time, and it was just so great to get
Yeah.
past all of
Oh.
that and to get down back into just straight driving again. Oh man,
It
that-
was scary.
yeah. Yeah.
There were times
prayed.
when we were,
praying,
yeah.
and we were just like, okay, I love you, honey. Something happens, I want you to know I love you. And yeah.
And there were
Yeah.
times when we were going 15 miles an hour around these hairpin curves where it was just a sheer drop
Right.
off.
In our little brown
Yeah,
Pinto,
yeah.
okay, which was not, it was relatively new because
It was like 5 years old.
yeah, I mean it was in good shape. It's just a Pinto on
Yeah.
roads like that, it was a
Full,
challenge.
full of stuff.
Right.
Full of stuff.
Packed down.
Oh,
yeah,
and
yeah.
that's another thing. We thought we would save money by
Yeah.
camping on the way home.
Yeah.
So we bought
So
sleeping
We had-
bags
right,
and
right.
food.
We
and
had a small tent and like a little tiny tent that we could fit the sleeping bags in, and that was about all that would fit in there. And just I think we even had a cooler. If I remember, we
Yeah,
had like
probably.
a small cooler for keeping food and all that. Did we do any camping?
We never did any camping. The first few times we were going to do it, it was supposed to rain, and we thought, well,
Yeah.
no. And after that, we just started making up excuses.
Well, we
it,
also discovered that when you're traveling like that, and we didn't know, we hadn't done it before, that there's all these cute little tiny motels that are there for motels, not hotels, like cute
Yeah.
little motels that are just there for people like us who are just passing through, and they just need a place to sleep for the night. And so we were surprised. I think I was so used to city, okay, that I'm thinking, oh, we can't afford to stay in hotels
Yeah.
because it's going to be too expensive.
Yeah.
And, no, not
No,
really.
it was not expensive at all.
Yeah, yeah.
And then so we went way out of our way just to get to
Yeah.
Mount Rushmore.
Oh, we were thinking it was going to be this really big deal to come up
Yeah.
on Mount Rushmore, and it was, but it was almost kind of like,
after 5 minutes of looking at these
Okay.
stone statues, it's like, okay,
Well-
what else is there to do?
Well, their faces, you know, if you,
Yeah.
I mean, you know, they're carved in the side of the mountain, and it's amazing when you think about all the work that went into it and everything. It's pretty amazing, and it's been featured in various movies, you know,
Yeah.
that kind of thing, that setting. It was, and we had fun. I think we
yeah.
did something where we videotaped and we had fun with coming up on
Mount Rushmore,
yeah.
you know. and
So, you know,
I don't know if I don't know what I expected these faces to do. I mean, they weren't going to do a song and dance. They were just
well,
there. And,
yeah.
you know, so I figured, gee, we came all this way out of the way for this, you know. But then we went down to Genesee, Illinois, where
Yeah.
one of Patty's former co-workers at the flower shop worked,
Yeah.
Hazel.
Yes, and that was where I told you the big flower shop that I worked at. Yeah, where you know where they're all wondering, did Dave really ask me? To
Yeah,
those
yeah.
friends. Well, anyway, Hazel, she was an older woman and just a lovely woman, and we had become really good friends. And she had retired and moved back to her
Her family lived
yeah, her
back
family,
there.
and was it
Yeah.
her grandson that had or was
No, it was her nephew.
Oh, her nephew had a farm, and oh wow, that was cool. I don't remember if we got pictures of that.
We did.
But
well,
we
we got
had-
video, I know that.
Yeah, because he had a big farm, and he showed us his tractor, and it was a
His
big deal.
combine.
Yeah, well, right. It was this huge thing, and he said it was air conditioned on the inside.
With a torsion seat, and it had a
and
stereo.
I mean, my word, you know, yeah.
This picked up corn
Yeah.
from the cob, and by the time it was done, all of the corn was in one spot,
Yeah.
and all of the other stuff was ground up and put
Yeah.
back out for fertilizer.
Yeah, so I mean,
was awesome.
It was amazing.
And he had like, what, 500 cattle?
yeah, a few,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
one or two.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway,
And so from there, we went down to her first cousin's, Anita,
yeah.
who was related to the people in Pacifica.
right.
And she was living with her husband in Mountain Home, Arkansas.
Yeah, that was a
And-
cute little town, and they lived kind of out. They had land, you know, they
Yeah.
had some land, and that was, we enjoyed that.
We did.
Yeah.
They were really living in poverty, though.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
but it was good to see Anita, and they had a little swimming hole there,
Yeah.
and we went swimming with them,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
they had a daughter named Lania, a really
Yeah,
cute blonde-haired
little-
girl.
Well, yeah, a little.
Yeah.
Like she was, I think she was still a baby, or you know, babyish
Yeah.
at that point. Yeah.
Yeah. And then from there, we went to Atlanta, Georgia to see my old buddy, Eurus Johansson, and his fiancee, Linda. And we stayed with them a few days, and Eurus showed us where he worked at Delta. He was a mechanic there.
That was amazing. Yeah.
And, you know, we just kind of toured Atlanta with him. And, you know, Eurus was just a good old friend from my elementary school days.
Yeah.
He's the guy that lived with me right after my girlfriend and I had broken up. So, I
He's a
mean,
good friend.
between Eurus and
Yeah.
Tom Wilson, they were my two best childhood friends.
That's true.
So then we went down to Tampa, Florida
Yeah.
to see my first cousin, Greg, who was engaged to this girl, and they did get married. And we stayed there for, I don't know, a few days, and that was kind of neat. And Greg had 2 paper routes, motor routes, and he was making a good amount of money on that, believe it or not. And that was just good to see them and to meet his fiance. And then from there we went to Disney World.
Yeah, and it was relatively new at that
Yeah,
point, right?
it had opened in '72, and this was
Yeah.
'77.
So I mean, my word, you know,
Yeah.
that was really something. Yeah.
And then we went to, this was for me, Cape Canaveral, NASA.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we actually saw a satellite launch.
That's true.
So that was pretty cool. And then we went up to Williamsburg, which is a colonial town
yeah.
up near
Yeah.
Washington, D.C., and we
Yeah.
toured that.
Yeah, that was.
And we got some nice pictures there.
Yeah.
Then we went to Washington, D.C., and we saw the Jefferson Memorial, the Lincoln Memorial, the Washington Memorial. We saw the National Air and Space Museum, the Smithsonian. And we saw the Capitol building.
Yeah.
I think we saw the White House.
Yeah.
We
yeah.
didn't get to go on a
no,
tour.
No. No.
And did we get to talk to we got to talk to our congressman. It was Nick Smith.
Okay, that sounds
Yeah,
kind of familiar.
yeah. He was a really great guy.
Yeah,
That was
yeah,
really cool.
Yeah.
And then from there, we went to Glenside, Pennsylvania, which is a suburb of Philadelphia, and we saw my uncle Ken and Aunt Ann,
Yeah.
and they had 4 boys, and we saw 2 of them.
Yeah.
We saw Bobby and Danny, and Danny was worked for the National Park Service, and so
Right, yeah.
he would give his spiel so many times a day at the Liberty Bell.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so he took us around and showed us the Liberty Bell, and then we saw Independence Hall and stuff like that. So that was, and it was neat just
It
seeing
was actually
Uncle
seeing,
Ken and Aunt Ann.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. It was good.
And Uncle Ken is my mom's older brother.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
then we came home to Livonia, and we were going to stay with my parents, and we did, but like 2 weeks later, and we knew this in advance,
Yeah.
we all, Patty and I and my mom and dad, we drove down to Atlanta, Georgia, because Eurus was getting married,
Yeah.
and I was in his wedding party.
Yeah.
And so it was really neat. Again, we got to know her family, and there were a lot of Christians in her family, and it was really neat. By the way, Hazel, her former co-worker, was also a Christian,
Yeah, she was.
so that was neat. And then we drove down to Tampa, Florida, where my cousin Greg got married, and that was his second marriage, and so we were there for that. And we saw Aunt Marion and Uncle Don, and we saw Sue and her husband, and just, a lot of people down there. We got to know her family. They were a little strange. But that was kind of neat. And then we just drove back up to Michigan,
Yeah.
and you and I got our first apartment in Michigan together
Yep.
at the Village Green at Ypsilanti.
Yep. That's right. That's right. Yep.
And
Yep.
I guess, the one thing that was really neat about this is we only had like a 3-day honeymoon.
It's true. And that was thanks to your
That
mom
was
and dad.
thanks to my mom and dad. And this time we figured it was only like 8 months after we got married.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
this was a 7-week honeymoon. And
It was a very good time together. I mean, we went through so much. We had days that were really stressful for varying reasons, and we had days that were amazing because of what we were seeing and experiencing, and the people we were getting to be with. I mean, it was an adventure. It was a 7-week adventure, and
Yeah.
I'm really
And
glad we did it.
I am too. And I know when we were saving up for it, we figured we may never have another opportunity to do this, and we never have had.
Yeah. Not in that way.
Not in that way. And so it was, to me, that was an experience of a lifetime. And it was also good we saw so much country, and it was so beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, God's creation is just gorgeous,
Yeah.
So we really had a good time, and I'm
Yeah.
glad we were able to do that.
Yeah.
Really glad.
And for me, it really opened my eyes to America as a country. I mean, just how diverse it is as far as, climate and everything that we saw.
People,
And landscape. Everything was so. I mean, I was used to a big city. Okay, Los Angeles. So, to me, and you could go for a long time and still be in city. Okay, so it didn't occur to me that it was possible that in going across the United States, we would encounter so much country.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, and we did the, you know, there wasn't the internet back then, okay?
No.
We did do our research, like we figured out how to travel. Like the safest way to get across the Rockies was what we did, what we felt comfortable with, you know, by going all the way up to Washington and across. It was, you know, an adventure in every way you can think of that word, and I think we learned a whole lot about each other too, just
Yeah.
going through that time together and sharing so much, you know, new stuff together that neither one of us were prepared for or knew what to expect. It was just kind of something to go through that.
Yeah.
You know, we learned a lot about each other. And,
Yeah, we did.
you know,
Oh, and we also saw, when we were going through Montana, I called my dad up and I said, "Dad, I'm in Butte, Montana,"
oh yeah,
which I know is where you were born.
Yeah.
And he was shocked. And
Yeah.
I said, you know, could you maybe look up the address of your home? And he didn't even need to look it up. He just said 604 Iron Street.
He just knew it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, oh, that was amazing. We went there. We found it. We found the house, and this was amazing. It was overrun. The lady, and it was an older lady, and she had a
She had
bunch of
passed
cats.
away, yes.
And so an older lady had lived there. She had just passed recently, within the last week or so, passed away, and she was a cat lover, and the house probably had 25 cats or something.
Or yeah, or more.
And
Yeah.
so the city of Butte, Montana, the condition of the house, they were just going to bulldoze the house. So we were so blessed
Yes.
and felt like God was just with us, that we were able to be there. And for Dad's sake, especially since that was where he was born, that we could take pictures
Yes.
of the house and the area around there, and have that to share with him when we got home. Just because, you know,
2
was
weeks
gonna
later,
be
it was
demolished.
bulldozed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, so what a
Yeah.
wonderful opportunity. Our trip was full of those kind of experiences, and I
You
get
know,
it. We're
what-
not sharing all that.
Yeah.
A lot of the stuff I wrote down, I tell a lot of stories
Yeah.
along
Yeah.
of things that happened along the way, and I'm so glad to have done that, because it you know, all that would have been lost to
Yeah.
our, you know, in terms of
Yeah.
our memory.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know?
Yeah, we wouldn't have remembered it.
And it was, I just,
One thing about the home is, as soon as I saw the house, I said, "That's the same house that I lived on in 92 East Parkhurst in Detroit."
yeah.
And my grandpa, Tom Maynard, had built the house in Butte, Montana. When he moved to Detroit to work in the auto industry, he built the same house.
Yeah.
So it was we couldn't
Yeah.
go inside, but it was the same house. And it was just kind of neat to see that, you know?
And very simple, very, you know, just a little.
Yeah, it's a
box
2-bedroom house.
Yeah, you
The house on Parkhurst was just a 2-bedroom house,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
And but yeah, so it was just kind of neat to see that. So we got to share those pictures with my dad, and that was my mom and dad, and that was really neat. So, but that was our trip.
Yeah, yeah.
So we'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.